I will call to order the Finance, Buildings, and Grounds Committee meeting, which was duly noticed on November 21st, 2025, through post and notification of the press in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 19.84, safety message. Now, had several different ideas here, and I was a little bit of the time of year, and it's easy to be distracted. But took a little different thing. I think about myself, and we think about just mental health, and let's include psychological health, and stress, and people can potentially feeling burnt out. Just even if it's good stuff. I mean, typically the holiday season can be good stuff, seeing family and people maybe you haven't seen, but that could also be stressful. And in lots of cases it is. But that's just one thing to, pause and think about. And we just, as we approach Thanksgiving, just remember to be grateful for everything, including the ones that may not be necessarily a good level of gratefulness, but we're still here to appreciate whatever life has to hold. There's more. I would say check the minutes to the meeting. I'm not going to go over all of these things, but it's really more tied to the season. And just to give you an idea of what's in there that I'm not going to talk about, substance use and overdose. Yeah, talk about stress, and some people go a different route to deal with stress. But then as we think about, the places we work, and potentially, people becoming stressed and how they respond. And if they see a sense of hopelessness, just be on the wire, and always good to talk to people and think about that. And I'm going to cry because I think about a situation I had many years ago, and I did not do that. Anyway, moving right along, and wherever the agenda's at. Somewhere here. Well, I will take a look at this. So, is there a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved.
Right, we have a motion and a second, and I will also approve that, so it passes unanimously.
Commissioner Ardrey,
Yes,
my apologies to the committee. I did not include the financial statements for October.
I noticed that, but that's okay. Well, I was going to beat you up on that a little bit, but that's okay. You took away my bullet. No pun intended there. Or maybe pun intended, anyway. All right, so first item is information on results related to referendum bid package. 1A, Dan and company, I'll say.
Yes, so Mike Johnson, which is one of our pre-construction estimators with JP Cullen, will be presenting the information. This was included in your packet for your review. And essentially what the district is asking is Mr. Johnson provide a high-level overview of the results of bid package 1A. Just as a reminder to the committee and for those who are viewing, we have several bid packages as part of the $151.8 million approved referendum. This is bid package 1A, which focuses on Jefferson, Wilson, and the ESC, the Educational Services Center. Come January, we'll be releasing bid package 1B. So just to give you an update in terms of the different bid packages that we have. Mike will talk a little bit about the process. And I'm very thankful that Dave Leader and Julie Yerke from our facilities team and I were able to join Cullen during the bid opening. So it's a very transparent process for the district, and we certainly appreciate that level of engagement. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson.
Continue. Hello, good to see everyone again. The last time I was here, I had a visual aid since we're in a teaching environment. So this is my visual aid for this meeting. Okay, this is a file folder with printed paper copies of the bids that we received in support of bid package 1A. So the document that was shared with the group here, it's a PDF version of an Excel spreadsheet. In our world, we call it a bid tabulation. You may hear it referred to as the bid tab. So it is a spreadsheet that really lists down by the work package. And again, at our last meeting, we talked about a work package it usually follows the industry trade codes. For example, electrician is Division 26, painter is Division 9. So it is a list that reflects the bid results that we received. And in this case here, we asked for the responding bidders to give us a value for each respective school with an option for a potentially combined school discount, if there is a discount, or it really wouldn't be a discount, but more of an efficiency of construction. If a contractor is awarded 3 different buildings, perhaps they could use the same superintendent, the same job trailer, right? So there's some efficiencies in that. So at a high level, we had really good bid results. We sometimes only get a handful of subcontractors, but in this particular case, the construction industry and the bidding market that's out there, we are seeing more response from subcontractors, which tells us that maybe there's not as much work out there that there used to be. So contractors are being aggressive. That is a great position for the school district to be in, to receive a lot of bids, to receive competitive bids. And it's really bidders that are driven to try to obtain more work. So my intent here is not to go through each individual trade section, but some talking points perhaps. If we were to look at 9.1, which is drywall, we ended up receiving 4 different bids, of which J.P. Cullen tried to take a stab at it, but we weren't successful here. But in this case, for drywall, Rockwell Group was competitive and low for all 3 schools. And when we compare that against perhaps the HVAC, which is on page 2, HVAC is work package number 23, and we are recommending to award a different mechanical contract for each school. So Zine Mechanical for Jefferson, NAMI, which is North American Mechanical, for Wilson, and Southport for the ESC. So from a community perspective, from a district perspective, the bid results allowed us to scope out the bids and get a little diversification and distribution, I would say, amongst our subcontractor industry. For example, we don't have one mechanical contractor on 3 buildings. We have it split up into 3. And then J.P. Cullen is set up from a staffing and resource standpoint to accommodate that scenario. Is that it'll result in a little bit more work for us, but that's all right. It helps the district with, again, the cost competitive perspective. So the group here has had a chance to look over this document. I guess I'll just turn it over to the group if there's any questions at this point. Okay, so this I would expect, right? Keep in mind, bid package 1A, as Dan said, there'll be a 1B. Right, as the pre-construction leader, I know that we have a 2A, a 2B, a 3A, and a 3B. So we will be having a very similar meeting to this several more times in the future. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, next we will jump down to 2.3 under operational excellence. Information on the district's 25-26 capital projects. The Daves with Julie and Dan in the background.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this afternoon, I'd like to present you with an update on Craig's Chiller, progress on the replacement of that. And then Julie will follow with roof upgrade as well as baseball, softball upgrades that are taking place. Craig High School chiller project status update. So temporary chillers have been removed from the site, as well as the temporary electrical and all process piping. So we're back to the original state. The permanent chiller has been purchased, and the process for bidding on the installation work is completed as well. School district is now in the final stages of selecting the contractor, with a bid award coming soon. So keep in mind, our finality on this, right, to have everything in place is prior to the cooling season. So things are going well.
So how many bidders did we have for it, and was there a change in technology?
I think we
guess
had
that's what I really want.
3 bidders, right? So if you look at the current system that's in there now, it's been in since 2007. This was a type of a system that had 2 parts to it. One was a chiller, and then we had another process of ice making, which worked hand in hand, right? The chiller at that time wasn't selected for the capacity of the entire square footage of the building, okay? It had to work simultaneously with the ice making capabilities that was presented. So if you have one of those that's off, everything's off. And after a period of time, like I said, 2007 was when it was installed, things just failed at an alarming rate, actually. So now what we're doing, right, is we're not gonna have that type of system anymore. It's gonna be a regular chiller, no ice making capabilities, nothing like that. Very standardized and similar to those units that we have at Edison and Franklin. So,
Dave,
yes.
I'm sorry. Could you just explain to a homeowner what a chiller would be comparable to?
A chiller would be comparable to the outside unit you have at your home. Same theory, same process, just on a larger scale. So, you bet. Julie?
Hello, Commissioners. I'm just going to give you a roofing update and also in process go over the roofs that we did in the summer of 2025, which were Franklin, Lincoln, Washington, Rock River Charter, Marshall, and selected Craig sections as well. Those are all completed, and we're just working on some punch list items to kind of wrap everything up. So that was a total of approximately $3.9 million worth of work that has been completed. We are currently finishing up sections 1 and 2 of Franklin that were not previously done. It's a very small section, was started yesterday, should be finished up by next Friday. That cost is approximately $134,000. So that will be it for this year, and then next summer, we have actually a couple different roofing projects on the horizon. One being Kennedy Elementary with the complete roof sections 1 through 8. The price on that is like $1.25 million. And then also Craig, there's sections 21 through 28, and that's about $1.2 million that we're anticipating need work. And that was out of about 5 different choices we had, so those are the 2 that we're selecting that have the most issues. Did you have any questions?
Just Kennedy, was that the complete roof?
Kennedy is the complete
Okay,
roof.
that's what you said,
Yes.
sections 1 through 8 and then complete.
Yes, I'm
So
sorry,
that's-
complete
No,
roof.
that's fine.
Complete
Just wanted to
roof,
make sure.
sections 1 through 8 is the complete roof.
Thank you.
So, we of course have overwhelming needs, roofing needs, and we're just trying to slice it off one piece at a time and put out the fires where we can. We will also be looking at the roof over the auditorium at Parker in anticipation of the referendum work coming up there this summer. So we don't have any bids back on that at the moment, but that will be, hopefully in December, we will have something on that.
Just one more quick question, and I know the public may go, dang, isn't Kennedy like our newest building? And why would we need a roof to be replaced so soon? So is it prematurely soon, or is it just normal life, or any response to that?
To my knowledge, it's just the normal life expectancy. I mean, I believe Kennedy is, what are we looking at, about 20?
98.
Oops, oh, sorry, right behind me, yeah, 98. So it is fairly normal life expectancy.
If I may.
Please.
So your regular 60 mil EPDM rubber roof system, and that's what we have pretty much across the district, you're looking at 20, 25 years life expectancy. And you look at the age of Kennedy, right?
We're right there.
We're there.
And I understood that, but I just, of the public could easily go, wow, we just built that. And it isn't like we just built that, it's been almost 30 years.
You know, it's funny you say that because as a maintenance group, we'll look at that building and say, well, it's new, right? It's just a common thing to do.
So that is basically it on roofing. Is there any other further questions on any of that? Okay, so I'll transition on to our ball field project. So we are in the process of finishing up our Craig and Parker High School ball diamonds. There's some pictures on the screen of work being completed at Craig. And at Craig, minus the dugout benches, everything has been completed at this time. So we did infield work. We dug about 5 inches down, replaced the base of the infield, and top dressed. We smoothed the lip from the infield to the outfield. So when players transition, it's level ground instead of potentially breaking an ankle or anything worse. But the bases have been realigned. They were considerably out of misalignment. The baseball pitching mounds were rebuilt. And other work that has been completed is fencing was updated around the sidelines, and some of the backstops were updated, and weed guard was installed. Concrete dugout pads were poured, and electrical was run to the fourplex of the baseball fields at Craig. Again, yet to be completed, as I mentioned, basically at both schools is dugout benches will be installed in the spring. It's just due to the concrete curing for the dugouts. Parker, we are still in progress there. We do have the infield work completed, again, dug down 5 inches, replaced the base, and top dress, 1 softball, 1 baseball, just like at Craig. We also smoothed the lip from the infield to the outfield, bases were realigned, and the baseball pitching mounds were rebuilt. Again, fencing was updated on the sidelines and backstops. Weed guard was installed, concrete dugout pads were poured, and also a future shed base was poured by the softball fields. That could be a potential place for an athletic shed. Electrical was run right outside of the concrete shed base and also by the baseball field. Still in progress is around the softball field. There is a retaining wall and a path that needs to be installed to enter the third base dugout, as it butts up to like a slight hill there, so that was all dug out, and that still has to be done yet. And then also the dugout benches will be installed in the spring. You click there. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, I thought that for this referendum, I thought that the sports projects were not a high priority.
This is not a referendum project. Is it referendum? Yeah.
So what is it?
It's a capital budgeted project.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Okay, next, 2.4, update on district student transportation agreement.
Just a quick update that our transportation agreement with Coach USA, formerly known as Van Gelder, expires June 30th of 2026. So we have a preliminary agreement that we're currently reviewing in hopes, You gave me, nope, we're good? Okay, sorry. So anyway, to really essentially, most likely it's going to be administration's recommendation that we continue our current agreement with Van Gelder, Coach USA, beginning July 1, 2026 for a 5-year term. Typically, our terms are 5 years simply because of the capital investment required for transportation. School buses are north of $140,000 each. Just 6 years ago, they were under $80,000. Right, so it is a significant capital investment, in addition from an attracting and retaining of staff, such as drivers. So that's why typically school districts do engage in a 5-year agreement. Most likely, right, kind of tipping our hand a little bit, but this was the structure of the current agreement, is it's usually CPI, similar to our CPI, +1 not to exceed 5. So as an example, CPI for bargaining units beginning July 1 of 2025 was 2.95%. Our increase is tied to that, our increase related to student transportation, +1, so it would be a 3.95% increase. You'll get another update in December.
I'll wait till December. Okay, good to know. All right, do we go into 2.2 or 3.1?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
2.2?
Yeah, 2.2.
So, just a,
Thanks for turning that on, Julie.
so as we say 2 years and we're in year 1, so that expires 26, 27.
It expires at the end of the 26-27. You are correct, sir.
right, thank you.
Thanks again, Julie. The district, as you know, has 4 priorities. We want to keep this on the forefront of our thinking and our planning: student excellence, staff excellence, operational excellence, and community partnerships. I'm going to turn the microphone off instead of hitting that. So a little bit about fiscal planning and membership. And members, as you may recall, are what drive the district's revenue. We've seen a decrease in our membership, and this year was a little dramatic, and we didn't see that coming. As a reminder, we will again be engaging MD Roffers from not only a community growth, but from an enrollment planning perspective. I would expect that report to be delivered to the committee and to the board in March of 2026. This is, you saw this snapshot during our annual meeting, essentially our September 2025 membership. And again, members are those students who reside in the school district of Janesville and attend either a Janesville public school or a public school outside of Janesville. This number is approximately 200 less when we were comparing the head count to the prior year. This is our trend line. This takes a look at both enrollment as well as a membership. So again, enrollment are the students, the belly button count, the seat account is sometimes what it's referred to. Members are those residents. So we have students attending our district from outside of our district. If it's a public school, they're counted in their home school in terms of membership. So if we have a student coming to us from Milton, Milton counts them as a resident. We do not count them as a resident, but we do count them in terms of enrollment. So you can see we are on a downward trend from 2015, when we had essentially 10,300 members, enrollment, to an enrollment of 9,098. If we look at membership in 2015, we're just under 9,900 to where now we're just over 8,800. The challenge at times that we struggle with, and we'll keep the math simple. I like simple math, particularly when I'm not in Excel. But if you think and say, well, we have 200 less members, right? To keep the math simple, if we have 20 schools, that's 10 members per school. If you look at a high school, right, you have 4 grade levels. That's less than 3 students per grade level at the high schools, right? If you break that down to an elementary school and you say, well, we have 10 folks at Adams Elementary across 6 grade levels. So our challenge is we're not necessarily pulling students that we are losing in a grade level, in a section. So that is our challenge. Even when we lose 200, right, they're not in the same place. So it becomes a distribution challenge for us. Want to take a look, if you will, at what other district, oh, yes, sir.
I think it's important just to address, and I know we're going to be looking at this, but, and it's more so for you two, you know, it was probably 15 or so years ago, we were talking about the slide in enrollment then. And the question at the board table was, well, does that equal closing any school? And we didn't know what we didn't know. So the not-so-smart board member took it on as a task to lead a group and let's look at, does it make sense to close any schools? So we looked at all of what we could look at. And ultimately, as Dan depicted, that first of all, the student attrition was kind of across everywhere. And when we looked at then does it make sense to, okay, if we redo boundary lines and move kids to certain schools, ultimately could we free up a building? The answer is, yeah, we could free up a building, but then are we going to permanently mothball that building, sell it and get rid of it? Or do you keep it and for the potential? And ultimately, if you're going to keep it, you spend almost 80% of what you spend on the building itself to do it. And we save, you still have the same amount of students. So it wasn't a significant savings in addressing that at all. So I just thought that was important to share. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, and most likely a potential topic as the board meets in January, right? It is a complex issue to begin to entertain that thought. There are also issues in this district that other districts may or may not be encountering. And one example is we provide intra-district enrollment. I live in the Van Buren neighborhood. I work closer to Adams. I would like to take my neighborhood residency and apply it to the Adams school. And I just remember this because it's somewhat of a high number, is when we engaged MD Roffers in 2023 to take a look at our community growth and enrollment, 40% of Madison students are not Madison school zone residents. Right? And part of it is the convenience that Madison provides. I drop off my 5th grader and my 6th grader at Franklin Middle School and my freshman at Parker High School. So there's a natural sequence to that flow of students. And while that is potentially appealing to families and to parents, right? So that's just one component of kind of a complex Rubik's Cube, I would say, in terms of all the decisions that go. To mothball a building, right, is you may save on some administrative cost, but your staffing is most likely dispersed to the area student or to the area schools. We then may have a student transportation issue, right, in terms of we'll need to provide transportation because they're outside that 2-mile boundary. So there's just lots of consideration. I appreciate the work that Commissioner Ardrey and some members of our community did in terms of looking at the boundaries of our schools. That is no easy task. I'm not saying we're up for that again. It is a complex issue to which there are many layers. So is this just the Janesville issue? Right? right? So what we provided is kind of a data slide, so not particularly fun to read. I circled Janesville. We can see of all these schools, only Sun Prairie saw an increase of 49 students. We'll see Stevens Point down 66, and this is the 3-year rolling average, which is a line on a district's revenue limit, right? So this is the 3-year numeric average, because you're going to say, well, Dan, you just said 200 students, but on our third Friday count, on a 3-year average, that's what generates the district's revenue. We're down 88. Oshkosh is down 40, West Dallas down 135, Wausau 89, Sheboygan 111, Fond du Lac 71, Milton 66, and Evansville 42. Public school enrollment throughout the state of Wisconsin is decreasing. This is not a Janesville issue exclusively. In addition to looking at those counts, it's interesting to look at the counts, and you've seen a data slide similar to this in the past, in terms of the revenue limit per member. How does Janesville compare? Right, and so we're looking at a different peer group that most likely mirrors Janesville better than our districts in Rock County. We have Clinton with 1,000 members, and we have Janesville with over 9,000 members. We are the largest school district, as you know, in Rock County. So sometimes, depending upon the data set we want to take a look at, right, it may apply and it may not apply. If we look at Sun Prairie as an example, their revenue limit per member is $17,369 times their 3-year rolling average membership. Stevens Point is $13,645. Janesville is $13,241. So what you see here is some compressed data in terms of we're taking not only the base revenue, but if these districts have an operating referendum on either a recurring or non-recurring, dividing that dollar value by the 3-year membership average and adding it to that base revenue. So I can tell you that Sun Prairie has passed successful operating on a recurring basis referenda. That is assisting in driving that dollar value up to $17,369. If we had Sun Prairie's revenue limit authority per member, this district, the school district of Janesville, would have an additional $37.6 million to work with. So the students have more value in Sun Prairie than here in Janesville, as is in Stevens Point. Oshkosh, less so. West Dallas, less so. Wausau, less so. Sheboygan, Fond du Lac, Milton, and Evansville. Actually, Evansville there, as you can see, right, within Rock County, has a higher revenue limit per member than the school district of Janesville, as does Clinton. But we didn't want to bomb you with all types of data. If we had Evansville's revenue limit per member, the district would have an additional here in Janesville, $2.2 million. Sometimes folks will say, do you have an expense problem? Keep in mind, we have a balanced budget. Revenues must equal expenses from a general operating fund standpoint. Right? So I would say we probably have a revenue problem, not necessarily an expense problem. I'm going to quickly talk about this with some slides that I had shown during our budget adoption. So the orange line is CPI in terms of what state statute probably should be supporting. It is indexed for inflation since back in 2010. The green line is the actual. So essentially we could say we've not kept pace, and the school district of Janesville has nearly a $30 million funding gap. Now, the community has been supportive of an operating referendum, and we're very grateful for that. Additionally, after Act 10, the state of Wisconsin did employ a tool called per student categorical aid. It's outside the revenue limit. That has remained flat for years, but that is an aid increase. It's not an aid in terms of tax relief. It is a categorical aid that does provide the district with revenue. When we apply both that per categorical aid as well as the approved referendum to exceed limits, we still have, based upon CPI, approximately an $8.7 million funding gap. Not sure I really like this slide, but it's my slide, so I'll take credit or not for it. These are the adjustments since Act 10 for revenue limit and per pupil aid and floor adjustments related to the ceiling, which is weird, floor over ceiling, over time. You'll see lots of gaps, which goes back to we have not kept pace with the original thought in 1993 of revenue limits. The revenue limit model is a good model. It is an underfunded model. Okay, people. So you'll hear a little bit from Jamie Brown, kind of giving you a little bit of a heads up in terms of a tactical approach to assist in managing a large component of the district's budget. But you have to bear with me for a few more minutes, right? And I also appreciate Carrie joining us as well. Keep in mind, we are in the people business. I said this at the beginning of the presentation. The district provides a community service, and essentially 73% of our costs relate to people. Right, so I net out the Fund 10 to 27 transfer. It's a $160 million budget, and again, this is an approximation, right? 117 million of that relates to people. Planning. I think, can you play this? Where's that? I don't see the, oh, there you go. Do you have to close the presentation and then play it, maybe? There we go. And do we have sound?
Your opportunity, your breakthrough.
If your PT billing partner can't show you exactly how much you're losing due to front desk errors, you're probably...
What have you learned about planning from the military?
One of the things that I think is very interesting, the difference between at least the Air Force and the military at large and private sector, is planning, quote unquote, is something that happens in businesses either once a year, you know, it's sort of your annual strategic whatever, or when something goes wrong, right? We have to have planning sessions. And that's pretty much the only time there's planning, right? In reaction to something or this prescribed annual event. In the military and in the Air Force, they're constantly planning. And they will produce thousands of plans a year, of which only maybe a few hundred will get implemented. And you know, Dwight Eisenhower said a long time ago, and I never understood what he meant until recently, when he said, planning is everything, the plan is nothing. And basically what that means is the plan is irrelevant the minute you try to implement it, because your competition, your enemy, whoever it is, they're not following your plan, you know, and your plan will go wrong almost as soon as it's implemented. Right. And it's this constant process of planning, that it's not the plan per se, but it's the process of planning that if something does go wrong, you can react to it. One of the interesting practical applications for this was the housing crisis, the economic crisis, which was the actuaries had figured out that there was a 99% chance of success for this, you know, mortgage-backed security thing. And they thought, oh my God, we're all going to get rich, let's do this thing. And they did, and we all know exactly what happened. The problem is there was no plan for that 1% that happened, which is the housing market collapsed. There was no plan ever developed or thought about if the 1% were to happen. In the military, I can promise you, they would have thought about that opportunity, if that, how would we react if that happens? And panic is what ensued. And nobody knew the answer. And things collapsed, and banks collapsed, and people lost money because there was no plan. And now the planning began, and we're still digging ourselves out of the hole, only because planning was an event and not a process.
So we live in a rather dynamic environment. As school districts, we are, if you will, subject to the rules that come out of Madison. relative to the biennial budget. We have local economies that we need to manage. We have state and national economies we need to navigate. So our planning, right, should just be that. It's a very active process. And that, I would say, is an approach we've attempted as a district and that we continue to attempt as a committee to look forward. At one time, I've shared this story perhaps with Commissioner Ardrey in the past, it was one of my districts, 2 districts ago, and there was a board member who said, well, maybe we should wait until the economy improves. And I asked, well, can you please tell me when that is, because we have needs next year, right? So we certainly need to be sensitive. And as I look back in the district's history and the loss of GM, the board and the community was sensitive to that loss, rightfully so. But that sensitivity is essentially a delay related to our facilities or a delay related to the district's operations. So we are catching up, right? And so we have to continue to look forward, to continue to plan, and planning is not just Dan filling it out. Planning is engaging our director group, human resources, benefits, curriculum, all of that goes into our planning process. Where are we in terms of curriculum adoptions? What resources do we need? We undertook 2 massive curriculum adoptions, Eureka for math and Wonders for literacy, that essentially we were able to leverage ESSER funding for. Those are $1 million adoptions. We don't have $1 million in our curriculum and instruction line. Right? So a lot of that requires planning as well as hopefully capturing lightning in the bottle. When it comes to our facilities, we're going to focus on facilities and then navigate to finance. It's just a quick reminder that this phase 1 of facilities planning is only addressing 16.3% of our needs. Commissioner Johnson, you asked an exceptional question. We cut out $7.5 million related to athletic spending of $167.5 million asked in the survey. We lowered it to 151.8. We cut out many things, including $7.5 million for athletics. We are able to leverage, because the district has been good stewards, dollars within Fund 46. So that's what we're using to pay for that nearly $500,000 improvement to our ball diamonds. That's what we're using to pay for not $3.9 million in roofing. A majority of that came from the referendum, but the balance in terms of the buildings we were addressing first, referendum, the balance came from Fund 46. Fund 46 today has approximately $10 million. We wanted that fund to grow prior to 2024 because we didn't know the outcome of the election in 2024. So now that we have a positive outcome, we can begin to tap those dollars. But $10 million does not carry us very far when we know in terms of heavy maintenance, we've identified $578 million worth of work. Great question. Commissioner Ardrey, yes, sir.
And in which year did we identify that combined $934 million?
Excellent question. So we did that, if you will, in the spring of 2024. Now, Mr. Mike Johnson here from Cullen did apply a 2-year inflationary aspect carrying us through 2026. So we still have work going on in 2027, work going on almost through, 2029. Right, so when we look at how we're managing that budget and the fact that we are under budget in bid package 1A is we can't go and expend that to its fullest because we have 5 subsequent bid packages that we need to care for.
My real reason for asking the question as we think about inflation. So although 151.8 million was approved, I would venture to say with inflation, we're probably right back to the 934. Yeah, or it's close thereabout as I do my math. So actually, it would be more than that, but similarly in numbers. Thank you.
Absolutely, great question. Thank you very much. This is just a recap of that 151.8. So thanks again, Commissioner Johnson, for setting us up. You threw Julie a bit of a hardball. She handled it well. I think she got a base hit. I'm just going to bat her home. 124.5 million to address critical building conditions, 11.1 to further improve safety and security, and 16.25 to improve special education learning spaces. This is a little bit of a timeline. You've seen this timeline a year ago. We talked about it last January of 2025 as well, in terms of what does that planning look like. So here, when we look at the operational referendum, we were approved, thankfully, by 60% of the voters for 14.5 million for 2 years. Now, I know I see 24, that was the last year of the 4-year operating referendum that was approved in 2020. 2 years, 14.5, 14.5 that you see there in gray. Gray. There's going to be an election in November 2026. I cannot administratively presume that the board is going to approve 2 motions, 1 to exceed the revenue limit and 2 to place a question on the ballot. That will be the board's consideration no later than August 2026. Administratively, it is our responsibility to continue planning and bring information to the board for its consideration. If the board chooses not to place a question on the ballot, we will need to make $14.5 million in cuts. We could perhaps use fund balance, but that will be gone in a year. Right, so that's essentially using 401k dollars to buy groceries, and we wouldn't encourage people to do that. I think currently as it sits, right, administration would recommend a 4-year referendum. We don't know, and we're not ready to make a recommendation in terms of would that be a recurring or non-recurring or a mix of the two. We have time, right, but time is a bit of an urgency. And that would be 4 years there in the kind of the teal green, and then we'll move on to the orange, half the colors of the Chicago Bears, so very grateful for that. I know we went to the Miami Dolphins. I would have appreciated going to the Bears, but I understand where I live. Then there's perhaps another 4-year referendum beyond that. TBD. Everything's to be determined. Superintendent Holtzman, Kerry Mickelson, Jamie Lynn Rose Brown, Dave Leader, Julie Yerke, and I, and do not have a vote. There are 9 people who vote. One thing that we'll most likely consider, and again, as part of our planning process, is going out to survey again. Survey on the operational side. It really becomes a tax tolerance survey, right? But it's a survey that may guide the board's decision-making prior to August. We also have facilities issues, right? And that is where you see the blue box, going back to my bear colors, in 2028. Again, we need to be planning. If we don't ask a facilities question in 2028, most likely we're not asking a facilities question until after 2030. We have a lot of needs. I'm going to transition a little bit into what we call our Baird budget model. So we work closely with Baird in developing a budget model that forecasts, if you will, 5 years into the future. There's lots of data. You're just seeing the tip of the iceberg when it comes to our budget model. We're looking at revenues and expenses. We're looking at aid position. We're looking at expenses related to shared costs that increase or decrease our aid. There's lots of things that go into the Baird budget model, as well as debt service, community service, Fund 80, as you know, non-referendum proof debt. Anything within the district's general ledger that we can capture essentially drives the model. So you're seeing a very high-level perspective of that. I should also emphasize this is a working draft. Working. Maybe I should have called it a planning document. That would have tied out nicely with my video. You're going to see 3 different scenarios, A, B, and C. So I'm going to quickly take you through scenario A. Scenario A is essentially a cast forward with a declining enrollment of 100 students per year. Excuse me, 50 students per year. 50 members, not 50 students, 50 members per year. So we have decreasing revenues. You'll see the red, right, minus 1.1. All right, that's next year as it currently stands, so we need to manage the budget to close that gap. Even with the increase in special education reimbursement, and we're budgeting for that conservatively, not at the state authorized 42 and 45, but at 40, because it never reaches the threshold that the state prescribes. We're always under. So essentially right now we could say we're nearly a $1.1 million deficit. All right. If the operating that you see with the yellow arrow drops off, in other words, the board chooses not to renew that, you can see our deficit in the 27-28 year drives to $18 million. You'll see we'll have $7 million left in fund balance, and come the year 28-29, you'll see another deficit of an additional $21 million. There is no more fund balance. There's no cash. There's no 401k. That is if the board chooses not to renew its operating referendum. This is the worst case scenario. Right now, we have a board that is very supportive of K-12 public education. I don't anticipate them not placing a question on the ballot to exceed the district's revenue limit. But we need to understand the value as a district of what $14.5 million does. And even when we factor that in, we're still underwater, because I know you guys can do math. Let's move on to scenario B. Scenario B is, all right, let's go ahead and kind of cascade based upon our incoming kindergartners, not just a flat student member across the board. Let's look at our senior class that is leaving. We know we always encounter approximately 75 or so students coming in as freshmen from our K-8 private school partners, right? So we factor that in, but we also know kindergartner numbers are coming in the low 500s. We have graduating classes at 700, right? So there's a bit of a deficit. So when we start to do the math and level out, we will have cascaded over the 5-year period of 175 to a loss of 20, and we kind of stabilize. Again, think about it, we're engaging MD Roffers, right, to assist us again. Are we putting in R1 housing in the city of Janesville within the school district of Janesville? Are we doing multifamily housing? What is happening within housing? Because housing, as you know, drives students and families. So we're factoring in the FTE drop. There's some other percentage increases, right, but they're nominal. We can anticipate an increase in student transportation. We can anticipate an increase in our district utilities. We can anticipate an increase in labor, and we can anticipate an increase in our health insurance benefits. And that's where Jamie's going to kind of come in and talk about an exciting program, right, that will tactically help us. It is not a panacea, but it puts us in a better position than we are today. Right, so keep in mind when we talk about things, it's not always a lever. There are multiple levers that we need to pull, right, related to compensation, related to benefits, related to managing the overall district budget. So let's recap again. A step down in terms of membership, an increase in cost, right, a reduction in labor, because if we see fewer students coming into our district, we cannot continue to keep the same level of staff. Even though earlier I spoke about the fact that they're spread out, right, but we have to think about it. So what this does is this is projecting a staff decrease of 4 per year over a 5-year period. Right, so a small step down, yet people's lives, people's staff, right, but still we have to factor that into the budget. Right. So 14% increase in health insurance, right, 2.5% increase in wages are the numeric values to project out related to labor. Then what you don't see here, because what we did is, when you look at the yellow arrow, is we threw in an operating referendum. Again, we are modeling. This is not what we're going to ask voters. It may not be what we're going to ask voters to consider, but first we need the board to consider as to whether or not there are questions being placed on the ballot. If you look at 27-28, you'll see a value of 18.5 million. 4 million more. Then another 4 million more, then another 4 million more, and then another 4 million more. Currently within state statute, we receive $325 per member. That is it. All right, based upon enrollment, that is just under $2 million of a budgetary increase. Not very significant. When we look to attract and retain talent via direct compensation or benefits, because keep in mind, 73% of our budget relates to people. Approximately 73% of our budget. Let's take a look at C. So what I wanted to do within C, because keep in mind, we also spent a little time talking about facilities planning. For us to ask another $151.8 million question in 2028 is probably needed, but we need to balance that need with the political reality. Because we need an operating referendum, that is what I would say is air in the room, but we also have an aging infrastructure that we need to continue to address. So what I did, and what my team and I did, is we put in approximately a $3 million increase in debt service to address a facilities question that would come to voters in 2028. Again, that's the board's discretion. But to not put in a potential debt issuance would be short-sighted on our part, and it goes back to the video, is we should always be planning. We have needs in terms of improving our career and technical education space. We surveyed that. We have needs related to athletics. We have feedback on the survey for that. And we have needs to updating our classrooms, whether it be an elementary classroom or a science classroom. We have lots of needs. So what we are doing, these last 3 slides, options are A, B, and C, are in terms of modeling for our hopeful decision-making strategically and tactically. And again, we'll go into perhaps a little bit of a deeper dive come January. Questions thus far? We're nearing the end.
It's one line item, and I think it's just important to note what it is, the energy efficiency exemption.
Correct. So you'll see an energy efficiency exemption in all 3 scenarios in your handout just below the green arrow. So back in, I believe, 2016-17-ish, the district engaged at what that time was called an Act 32 energy exemption. So there's kind of a petition process, and so the district was able to levy debt related to an energy exemption. And so that energy exemption is the debt payment related to those improvements that occurred predominantly at Franklin Middle School. That debt falls off. But we're really not going to be able to capture any mill rate impact because of that. So what's next? This is the committee update, right? Trying to keep you all abreast so you know what's going on. There is planning. You're not going to walk into the district office here and say in January, so what are we talking about? I have no idea. What? What is happening? I didn't realize that. That's the purpose of today. Now, there are 6 of your peers who may be shocked, but the 3 of you, if we could ask to be ambassadors, that would be awesome. We're going to send out some information to you. I didn't include it in your packets, but we review the community survey. We'll share that information out as well. In January, we're going to engage the Board of Education. We were kind of working on, scope and prioritizations and costings related to facilities. That's a little more longitudinal in terms of we probably won't even have that by January, right? There is a staffing plan that we still need to work through. There are other operational considerations. We're going to be doing the update to the enrollment and community growth data. You'll see that report in March 2026. There's always community engagement, right? So Superintendent Holtzman does a great effort in terms of working with Allison DeGraff and Chris Medenwalt in terms of engaging Forward Janesville. There's the engagement in terms of our workforce to be career ready or perhaps college ready, right? So there's lots, we have to tell our story. This is essentially the community engagement aspect of it. A potential community survey I spoke about, and then again, come no later than August 25th, the board will need to make a decision related to an operational question first and foremost. When I first started my professional career in 1988, I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman who is a fellow custodial supervisor at the Evanston Hospital by the name of James Brown. James is an amazing individual. We still keep in contact, although not as much as I would like. He's a fascinating man, as I said. He had the opportunity to walk with King, right? And I had the opportunity to shake James Brown's hand, who shook King's hand. Right, so that's just, it's kind of exciting, but maybe only so far for me in a geeky way. Back in Clinton, I found this quote by King, right? And this was actually a precursor to our operational question. And I'll give you a moment to read through that. we must always be planning. We must always be active, right? And you can apply this, I suppose, to many aspects of our own lives in terms of being too late, right? We cannot be too late. And I applaud the board for its action over the years. We just must continue to keep that momentum moving forward because we don't want to be too late. I'm going to ask Ann to play this video. It's not one of my favorite movies, but it's kind of a cool
The damn
movie.
school wasn't built for us, Roger. It wasn't built for your unions, your lawyers, all your other institutions. It's built for the kids. They're not here for us. We're here for them. That's what it's about. Kids.
Alex, half of them aren't even coming back after the alarm.
But half will. I think they're worth it.
Anyone name that movie? Yeah, it's the movie called Teachers, obviously with Nick Nolte, right? So yeah, it's a good movie, probably a little bit my time, but I think it speaks to the fact, and it's just a reminder at this committee and perhaps other things, as we talk a lot about data, literacy data, financial data, right? But it truly is about the students who enter our doors every day to receive an education. Right? And sometimes, and I have to give a shout out to former Superintendent Pufall, we were on the radio together a number of years ago, right? And he framed it as, these are not my buildings, these are not Dan's buildings, these are not Greg's buildings, or Commissioner Johnson or Commissioner Johnson's buildings, these are the community's buildings. We are stewards of the buildings, we are stewards of our children's education, right? In order to help us meet our educational goals, the state is not fulfilling its obligation to the fullest. So we need the community support in order to do so. Questions? Y'all want to hear from Jamie Lynn Rose Brown, don't you? Oh, yes.
So I don't know if you can answer this, but do we know when the last time the statute for the student, the money that we get back from the students was changed? You say we get $325 per student. Do you
Yep.
know how long it's been that amount?
This is year 3 in that amount.
Okay.
And we'll have it for the next 397 years.
Okay.
Right, because this goes back to the biennial budget prior to the current biennial budget, right? So it's 2 years of 325 in the prior biennial budget. We are in the first year of this biennial budget. That's the 3 years. So you may recall Commissioner Johnson, like the state of Wisconsin governor has like this Frankenstein veto to where they can cross out letters and numbers to essentially create new language. So Governor Evers took advantage of that, similar to Governor Walker taking advantage of it with Act 32 and essentially vetoing that measure for 1,000 years. Governor Evers came in and essentially said 325 years via his veto pen, not $325, excuse me, for the next 400 years. So we have 397 left after this year of $325 per student.
Okay. And then, do you know how big the class sizes will be for like the next 5 years?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we'll work hand in hand a little bit with human resources. You may recall Carrie had shared with you kind of a staffing plan, right? So that in the finance plan kind of mirror one another, right? So we're always looking at those TPRs, right? But we're even below TPRs. That's a change in policy that we would probably recommend, but essentially we're trying to promote small class size at those transitional grade levels. All right, so when we look at staffing, right, now I talk a lot and I kind of forgot the nature of your question there, right? So I started to get on a ramp up.
Yeah, so I just asked what the class sizes were for like the next 5 years.
Yes,
You mentioned
thank you.
like
Thank you for
kindergartners
that.
and then our senior
So
class now.
one thing that we take a look at, and it's even within the Baird model, we need to update it, is we can see those trends in class sizes per grade level, per building over time. Right, so we can kind of begin to see, you know, well, what is happening at this school, right? And almost by And there's so many schools and so many grade levels, right? I'll pick at Jefferson. Jefferson's third grade this year may be 52, but their second grade is 41 and their first grade is 38, right? So we can see those trends currently, moving forward, as well as the past. That helps Carrie Mickelson and her team, right, and district administration in terms of looking at those class sizes to manage those class sizes, as well as to then manage the number of sections. But tracking enrollment, to your point, right, is a very vital component of the work that we do, right? So thank you for tuning into that.
Yeah, that was just really interesting to me that the class sizes jumped that much between seniors and kindergartners.
Yeah, so I think part of it, right, is that overall population trend, right? So again, we have approximately, on average, right, it's an ish number, could be 80, could be 65, but we'll say 75 that come in from our private schools. Private schools, though, most likely are also starting to encounter some of the same enrollment issues we are, simply because the birth rates in the state of Wisconsin, as well as the country, are going down. You will find when the report is presented by MD Roffers come March, it to be a fascinating, detailed report, because it's just not looking at birth rates, right? It's taking a look at the demographic groups. Some demographic groups, dare I say, have larger families than other demographic groups, right? So as that population changes, right, so too may our enrollment. You'll see across the district, Washington and Van Buren are somewhat busting at the seams, right? But then we have maybe Adams and Jefferson, right, where the enrollment is not busting at the seams. Sometimes when it comes to our facilities, right, is a lot of our buildings, as you recall, are built in the 50s and 60s, right? And so programming at that point in time is not the type of programming we have today. And the square footage may be appropriate, but it's the composition of that square footage that, from a facility standpoint, poses some challenges to us. Communities often wrestle. So as a board member in Whitewater, I can tell you we wrestled with Lakeview all the time. Where's the number? What is the number for the board to consider closing Lakeview? To this day, the board has not closed Lakeview. They've managed that to where at Lakeview and Whitewater, they go, well, it's really a single section grade level. That's what we're doing there, right? We're keeping it because politically, to pull the plug on Lakeview is a bit of a challenge, right? And that is, as a board, you wrestle with, and as administration, we wrestle with, all right, and Commissioner Ardrey can speak to it, is changing boundaries, managing enrollment. Do we dare even think about closing a school? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Do we repurpose? There's all the fascinating topics related to enrollment that we'll most likely get to wrestle with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Next item, 3.1, information on district initiative, Healthy as You. Jamie Brown.
Good evening, Commissioners. Very excited to be here tonight. Generally, when I'm up here, I'm talking about health insurance and large increases. So tonight, I am very excited to talk about staff excellence. Anything else? Yeah. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the transition to our new insurance brokers, and then I'll introduce Healthy as You to you. Back in November, about a year ago, the district went out for RFP. We did receive approximately 5 or 6 firms who were interested. We did narrow that down to 2 finalists. That decision came about February, March, and I needed some time. I needed to make sure that the programs that we had in place would not be affected, and I needed to do some research. So in June of 2025, we did determine that we were transitioning our brokers, and we went with USI. USI stands for Understand, Service, and Innovate. The district has a dedicated 6-person team who works with, I would say, 99% of the districts in our area. Once they got on board, we started looking at stuff. So not all of these are done because this is a lot of data to go through. But we will be taking a look at all of the benefits that we offer. We're gonna look at our claims, what are our employees experiencing? We're gonna review retirement plans. We're gonna do that financial analysis of self-funded. And then my big goal is a district clinic. So since the transition to USI, I had a conversation with them and I said, our health insurance, we have to do something, okay? And so we went to meetings and talked with people and what I noticed was that other districts had these little extras, okay? So for example, maybe they had an on-site clinic or, an additional service. So talked with our USI brokers and they brought forward Healthiest You, okay? Healthiest You is a 100% virtual on-demand doctor. It is 24/7 access. There is no limit on the visits that a person can have, okay? Very quick treatment, and my favorite part, it is zero cost to the employees, no matter how many times they use it. With that, though, what is the employee going to experience? Okay, so I kind of drilled it down to 5 different categories of what they offer. So they have general medical services, non-emergency, urgent care needs. Everybody would be seen on the same day. Okay, so what I envision this being is my child has pink eye, and I can sit at home, turn on my phone, and talk to the doctor through my phone. Okay, and they can look at my child's eye. I'm not taking my child anywhere. I'm staying home. Okay. Commissioner Ardrey, you will like this one, mental health services. This is one of the pieces that sold me. So I too am a big supporter of mental health, and that is one thing that is struggling not only in this area, but the whole nation. So Healthiest You offers, they have all different levels of counselors. They have psychiatrists on site to help with the medication management. You will see somebody within 7 days. And what I like even more about it is once you get into a routine with someone, you can schedule that out now. You're not required to see somebody new every time, and it still is going to cost you $0. Dermatology is another area that is generally takes a while to get in to see. This is more of a, I'm going to send you a picture and then you're going to respond to me type of interaction. So generally within 2 to 3 days, you will receive a response from the dermatologist. Other services that they do offer is nutritionists, help with meal planning, anything that you're doing to increase your well-being. Appointments are within 7 days. And then they also offer expert medical opinions. You were told that you needed a knee replacement and you're like, I don't think I do. They will for free review your medical records and provide you with that second opinion. So, what will Healthiest You cost the district? This will be approximately $125,000 for the year. I know, right? We're going to pay about $12 per employee per month, okay? And this is extended to their spouses, to their dependents, again for $0. So how is the district going to pay for this? So as I said before, USI came in and they just started analyzing things and they started kind of picking away at some stuff. And so we were able to adjust our administrative costs. So those changes go into effect January 1st, and we will use the cost savings from that and apply it to the Healthiest You. Healthiest You isn't the end-all be-all for our health insurance issues, right? Like, we know that our MLR runs high and we live in HMO land and all those things. So this is just kind of the bridge until we can get there to where our district needs to be, okay? So again, not the answer, but it's just a step. So I am, very excited to say that investing in Healthiest You is an investment in our staff. 3 things that they will benefit from is increase in access to care. Again, you're seeing somebody within 7 days. Prepare our staff to use a district-sponsored clinic, maybe gear them towards going to a certain way for care. And as you know, our MLR runs very, very high. So while this won't take care of the big claims and, the accidents and things like that, it is gonna help chip away at that medical loss ratio. Because we're gonna take away some, theoretically, we take away some urgent care visits, we take away some ER visits from our MLR. And so hopefully, this will start to bring that down, and the district can become more, maybe look more appealing to some national carriers, so maybe we can get a bid once, so. Is there any questions?
So, if I may add, right, so thanks very much, is working with Jamie and working with Carrie, right, I shared earlier how sometimes we're making incremental changes, right? We're looking to how can we best manage our cost. So I certainly appreciate from a budgetary standpoint, the effort in terms of, okay, what can we do to manage our cost while also, as Jamie pointed out, to these 3 very important bullet points, right? We're increasing access to care for our staff who are enrolled in the plan, right? Preparing staff to use a potential district-sponsored clinic. That is a huge paradigm shift, right, for our staff. Should we have the opportunity to go there, it's positioning us for our staff to embrace that concept. And then again, assisting in reducing our plan utilization. I think even in today, like as a subscriber to Mercy, right, there was a time where I had to take a picture, send it in. That is an office visit. To have the opportunity to take care of myself at a 0 cost to the district, when I say 0 cost in terms of impacting MLR, right, is very helpful. We're all in this together. One thing, and I know I'm talking a lot, and poor Jamie's standing at the podium, right, is in that model, when you look at 14% increases, and if we were to apply that to a family plan, in 5 years, the value of a family plan is nearly $45,000 all in. If we do not make an effort to control while still providing a valuable benefit to our employees. Commissioner Johnson, you taught. $45,000 for a family plan, right? A salary, a package for a teacher would be in excess of $100,000. And on $325 per member, we're not going to be able to do that. That's the fiscal planning, understanding the needs of our staff, 73% of our budget, and addressing our community's educational needs. That's why we need to go to referendum.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Oh, that takes us to the end of our agenda. Future committee meeting items, anything for anybody? I think one thing, just because I know the system has been implemented, or at least I believe, or is somewhere in the level of implementation, the building automation system, kind of like the update and, what does it look like? It's quite a bit of a move from where we used to be to where we are now, so we'll update. Doesn't have to be, well, maybe December would be better than what sounds like January will be, but even if it's later, that's okay. Just wanted to get it on the list. Next meeting. Typically, it would be December 16th, and you guys are more than welcome to have it without me. But I can't make it December 16th. Can we move it up a day to the 15th? Okay. And then I would say, based on me the last several meetings being a few minutes late. Can we move it to 4 o'clock? I don't want to do that, but. So. Yeah, if we could do that, that would be, then I won't be late.
To Commissioner Ardrey and the committee, we'll just need to determine whether or not the room is available. So we may meet here or we may meet off-site, just to prepare you for that. I've been told by two great resources behind me that the room is not available on Monday, December 15th, so we'll find an alternative site. Perhaps Parker or Marshall. We have some PD professional development space there, or a classroom to be named later somewhere in our district.
Yeah, let's look at somewhere some work has been done, and that might be an opportunity for, maybe we still meet at 3:30 for a little bit, well, not, maybe 3:30, and we do a little bit of a visit of a building ahead of our meeting, so.
Jefferson, I recommend Jefferson.
We'll get you up to a roof, no doubt.
I've been there, done that. All right, so December 15th, something after 3, I'll say. Maybe not 4, but something after 3. Okay.
If you choose Jefferson.
Yep. Thank you, and we're adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Yes, definitely.
It's a habit of mine.
You guys hear what?